enemy. Our next speaker, Paul Brunoforte. The Great Race. The Great Race, Paul Brunoforte.
Thank you, Frankie, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and anyone who likes to hear amazing personal stories. Now, there's two things you have to know about me. One, unlike most of you who can't remember much before you were, say, 3 or 4 years old, I remember everything, and I mean everything that ever happened to me. Secondly, I love to swim. I was literally born to swim. Why, I remember when my mother was 9 months pregnant with me, I was just sitting there in her womb, just kind of relaxing, and she was floating in the water at the beach because it took the weight off of her back. Her back was hurting. So as she's floating there, suddenly a rogue wave comes, lifts my mother up, throws her into the sand, and she goes into labor. And I wake up, and I'm looking, and I can see a little crack of light. So I come up to the light, and I look out, and I can see water, and I can see fish, and then it started pushing my head out. And I wanted to scream, but I was underwater. And then, push, she squeezes me out. And I start swimming. And it's really beautiful. I'm having such a good time. But then another rogue wave comes. And it starts taking me out to sea. I want to scream. And then, I look down. It was the umbilical cord. So I pulled myself back to my mother. And I got into her loving arms. And that started my career as a swimmer. I swam in high school, I swam in college. I was going to go into the Olympics, but it was too easy. So I entered very dangerous endurance races. Like the Amazon 1000. It was 1,000 miles down the Amazon River. Crocodiles coming into the water after us, piranha nipping at our feet, and on the shore, there were natives shooting blow darts at us. It was extremely dangerous. Sadly, we lost about 150 competitors. But I came in third, and I qualified for the Suez Canal Triathlon. It was called a swim, fight, and run. Here's what you had to do. You had to swim backwards, fight off Somali pirates, and then when you got to the shore in Yemen, you had to run like hell from the jihadists who wanted to kill the infidels. A very dangerous race. But as dangerous and as difficult as those races were, none were as difficult or as dangerous as the Great Race. The Great Race, which happened about 9 months before I was born. When I was just a tiny little spermatozoa. I remember it well. There I was, standing at the starting line. Which was very difficult since all I had was a tail. So I'm standing there and I look to my left. There's 300,000 competitors. I look to my right, there's 700,000 more. There's 1 million of us. And only 1 or 2 or maybe 3 at the max wins. Everyone else dies. So I'm very, very excited. Now, we had heard a month earlier that all the swimmers died because they wound up in a sock. But I knew today was the day because my father was home on leave from the army. And they had just finished a bottle of wine. So I'm waiting there, very intent. We want to hear the sound of the gun. But there was no gun. We started rocking. There was a loud moan, and we were off. We were going. It was complete chaos. And then as we went around the fallopian curve, I looked ahead, it was two blondes. What are blondes doing in my gene pool? But they were going the wrong way. So I kept on going. And then finally, we hit Uterus Hill. And thousands petered out. They petered out, you get it? So we start climbing up Uterus Hill, and we heard on the other side that there was a wall, not a Trump wall, but a big rubber wall. So we peek over, and it wasn't there. What we saw was a beautiful, pulsating orb. We got really excited. As I looked at it, I could see there was a little door. And as I swam closer, it said, "Enter here." It really said, "Entered here." So I swam hard. I took my giganto head. I threw it at the door. It went through the door. The door slammed. I was out of breath. But outside, hundreds, maybe thousands, "Let me in! Please! Let me in!" But I couldn't let him in. I was exhausted. I was laying there. And then the next thing I knew, I woke up and I was looking out at the beautiful water. Mr. Toastmaster.